As you know, Iran has retaliated to the US, striking cities across the Middle East, including Qatar and Dubai. Just a few minutes ago, an Iranian drone struck Kuwait International Airport, damaging a terminal. We're going to continue, of course, to cover this breaking story. We're getting analysis, we're getting reaction from all over the world. And who better to hear from on such an extraordinary day, such a day of turbulence and shock across the world, than Simon Marks, LBC's Washington correspondent. Simon, honestly, I mean, this is moving at pace, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. But I think it's very important to underscore, Vanessa, without any underlying strategy on the part of President Trump whatsoever. I mean, we can all agree that the Iranian government has brutally murdered thousands of its own citizens and launched acts of terror on the streets and cities of Western countries all over the world, including the UK, over many, many years. But what President Trump is engaged in today is nothing short of a geopolitical game of 52-card pickup. He and the Israelis have decided to launch these attacks aimed, he says, at toppling the Iranian regime, with absolutely no idea what the day after looks like in Iran. By his own admission, it's over to the Iranian people. It's their opportunity to seize control of their own country in some fashion, even as he is saying to the Iranian people, stay indoors, it's too dangerous to go out, bombs are going to be raining down, and saying here, according to his officials, that we are in for many, many days of this military operation. There's not even a strategic plan for today. Take a look at what President Trump has said, for example, to the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, those brutal military forces that just a few weeks ago were shooting dead tens of thousands of protesters on the streets of Iran, that at the time President Trump encouraged to take to the streets, saying help is on the way. And then, of course, he didn't deliver them any help at all, while he gave more opportunity for talks to take place with the Iranian regime in Geneva. So today he's saying to the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, surrender, lay down your weapons, and you will be given complete immunity for everything that you've done. Well, to whom are they supposed to surrender? There's no one that they can surrender to. It's not as though American boots are on the ground ready to process their acts of surrender. And when the president promises them complete immunity, he cannot possibly know, first of all, that that view is going to be embraced by the Iranian civilian population and the families of those estimated 20, 30,000 Iranians that were killed during the most recent protests. And he also has no idea what kind of government may eventually be formed in Iran and whether it will agree to embrace complete immunity for members of the Revolutionary Guard. So this is a war that is being prosecuted and made up entirely on the hoof. There is no strategy, even for today, much less what happens the day after the Iranian regime falls. And I know we've had so many callers to LBC over the last few hours who are big admirers of Reza Pahlavi, the exiled crown prince, the son of the late Shah, who lives actually here in the Washington, D.C. area, and who are excited about the possibility of him forming a government. Well, it was notable that President Trump did not in any way endorse Reza Pahlavi to take over in Iran. His State Department has kept him at more than arm's length. And indeed, at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Senator Lindsey Graham, a big foreign policy voice in Donald Trump's ear, was asked in front of Reza Pahlavi if he would support Reza Pahlavi forming the next government in Iran, and Lindsey Graham unequivocally said no. So who they want in charge is absolutely unclear, and how this all ends, no one here in Washington, D.C. can tell you.
All right, so we don't know how it ends, but why did it begin? As you say, no game plan, not even a strategy for today. So what was the impetus behind it? Why has it happened? And then I'm going to ask, of course, what the reaction is in the United States to this unfolding news. I know you're hours behind us, but we woke up this morning to this breaking news story, and it's been carrying us around in this kind of enormous kind of, tumultuous way all day. What's going on over there? So first of all, why has he done it?
Well, I'd love to be able to answer that question, Vanessa. I mean, he's done it, I think, partly and fairly significantly because he needs a major distraction here. I mean, he's at the lowest point ever in opinion polls. On the eve of the State of the Union address, the Washington Post survey showed that 63% of the American public disapprove of what he's doing as president, and 73% of independent, undecided voters say they disagree with what he's doing. He needed a distraction, especially off the back of that humiliating U-turn in Minneapolis, the now we know only partial withdrawal of paramilitary forces from the streets there that managed to kill 2 American citizens in January in their efforts to enforce President Trump's mass deportation efforts. So, number one, he wanted a distraction. Number two, the talks in Geneva, the Americans claim, were going nowhere. And also the Americans were irritated, deeply irritated, that the Iranians would only discuss their nuclear ambitions and would not discuss their stockpile of ballistic missiles. But as to the precise timing of this over this particular weekend, I mean, that is very unclear. President Trump finds himself in a situation where last July he told the American people and the world that the United States and Israel had completely obliterated Iran's nuclear capacity and absolutely dismissed any suggestion that the Iranians had managed to squirrel some of their enriched uranium away before America's bunker-busting bombs descended on the country. Now, we're told by the same US administration that Iran was a week away from having the capability to build missiles that would be able to reach American shores, and that their ballistic missiles already have the capacity to reach the streets of Europe. Therefore, the president is arguing there was an imminent threat to American national security. And even, bold as brass, saying that the massive force that he decided voluntarily off his own bat to steam into the region over the last couple of weeks, that massive force was at risk of being attacked by the Iranians, which he suggests creates a national security threat for the United States. But for his base, for the Make America Great Again, America First loyalists, who were promised an end to America's involvement in far-off wars. We were bringing the forever wars of the past to an end. This is a very difficult day off the back of Venezuela. They didn't really understand what the America First interests were in Venezuela. If this is going to drag on, as the president and his entourage are suggesting, for many days, there's going to be a real moment where he has to explain to the country in precise terms what the national interest was for this action and, critically, what sort of government he wants to see formed in Iran.
I mean, I think that the overwhelming thing that people will have taken away from what you've said so far, Simon, is the idea that this was effectively a kind of ruse to create a diversion, to kind of take the heat of scrutiny off himself. Is that really what you're saying? That this thing, which is having actual reverberations around the world. People have already lost their lives today, and people are frightened and worried and scared. And people. We had a call from Doha. A lady's just stuck in her flat with her elderly mother and her children, and told not to leave it, and she can hear the sonic boom. And we've had all sorts of calls all day, and the idea that it's a kind of technique or a strategic maneuver, really in the interests of personal PR, is absolutely horrifying. Is that really what you're suggesting?
Well, I'm saying that I think that certainly plays into the timing of this decision. I mean, it's not only his plunging standing in the opinion polls. There's a whole raft, as you know, of fresh questions swirling around the White House and President Trump's no longer independent Department of Justice over the Jeffrey Epstein scandal and allegations that at least one woman brought to the authorities in 2019 about Donald Trump's alleged involvement in abuse of her back in the 1980s when she was a teenager. So lots of fresh questions being asked of the White House over the last few days about that. But also, there's no question that Donald Trump has been desirous, not necessarily of regime change in Iran, but of the sort of situation that he brought about in Venezuela. If you remember, in Venezuela, he attacked the country, abducted President Nicolas Maduro, removed him from power, but left his regime in place, and then was able to coerce the regime into giving the United States complete total control over Venezuela's oil industry, the country with the largest oil reserves in the world. Now, at one point last week, Iranian negotiators were batting their eyelids in the direction of the Americans and saying, we'd love to do a deal like that Venezuela deal. How about you take a good portion of our oil industry and invest in it over the long term? And they were hoping to buy the Americans off the threat of military action by goading Donald Trump into an agreement over oil. So it could be that what this is all about is getting rid of the supreme leader, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, maybe also getting rid of Iran's president, Masoud Pezeshkian, and then waiting to see who takes the wheels of power in Iran, and then co-opting Iran's oil industry and, as with Venezuela, bring it under American aegis. Donald Trump is definitely thinking outside the box, and that was underscored 24 hours ago when he even predicted the possibility of an American-friendly takeover of Cuba. So that is how far we have drifted from any traditional capacity to look at American foreign and defense policy and analyse it through the prism that we've all been using for the last many, many years.
Yeah, and if I just fling in the words the Senate and I fling in the words international law, you just fling your hands up in sort of horror and just say nothing applies anymore, it doesn't matter. Is that right?
Yeah, I think absolutely right. I think I will fling my hands up and say, for this administration, completely irrelevant. I mean, they've never even bothered to justify the attack in Venezuela as being within international law. This is plainly illegal on an international scale, and it's actually illegal here in the United States. If they have tried to assassinate the supreme leader and Iran's president, that runs counter to a law that was enacted by Ronald Reagan in 1981 that says American elected officials cannot be involved in efforts to kill the heads of government and heads of state of other countries. As for the Senate and the House of Representatives here, I mean, irrelevant. You know, they'll stomp their feet. There are a couple of congressmen threatening to hold a vote next week, one Republican, one Democrat, trying to force everybody to go on the record as to whether this was a breach, and it obviously was an egregious breach of the War Powers Act. I will say successive American presidents, not just Donald Trump, have taken military action and ridden roughshod over the notion that they should consult with Capitol Hill. But on this occasion, we'll see the stamping of feet, but I don't think any meaningful action, certainly that's going to constrain this administration's actions in Iran or anywhere else.
Simon Marks, thank you very much indeed. That's Simon Marks, LBC's Washington correspondent. Feel free to respond to anything he just said. All of it utterly mind-boggling, as I'm sure we all agree.